Hello, welcome to Eyeturk Podcast. This is episode 6 with Maaz Belkheir. Today we're going to talk about how you can get a work permit in Turkey. What are the conditions for getting a work permit? What are the types, different categories of work permits? What is the process? How much it will cost? And why should you consider getting a work permit? All of these questions and more, we're going to answer them today in our episode of Eyeturk Podcast. For those who are watching us the first time, Eyeturk Podcast is a weekly show here right now live from Facebook. And you can find it on YouTube, uploaded after the episode finishes. We covered topics in our previous episodes, like how you can get a residence permit in Turkey, what you should know about real estate investment in Turkey, how you can apply for the Turkey scholarship, the best business ideas for you to invest in Turkey, and how you can establish a company in Turkey. So basically, for our show, we give an introduction of the topic and we go through the process and answer the most common questions asked by the foreigners. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and we will answer them at the end of the podcast. So today we're going to start with a brief introduction of what is a work permit and the different types of work permits in Turkey. So in Turkey, as a foreigner, you can apply for a residence permit. Let's say you're staying here as a tourist and you want to stay for a year, or you've bought property, or you're an investor and you want to stay for more than what your visa allows you to. Then you apply for a residence permit. But if your main purpose is working, then you apply for a work permit. So you don't need a residence permit and a work permit at the same time, but in some situations you need to get a residence permit first and then apply for the work permit. And we're going to cover this in our episode today. So if I get a work permit, I don't need my residence permit anymore. The work permit takes the place of the residence permit, and it's a legal way of me residing and working in the country. So the number of foreigners getting work permits in Turkey has been increasing in the last few years. To give you an example, in 2011, there was around 17,000 people with work permits, foreigners in Turkey. In 2019, that number jumped from 17,000 up to 145,000. The numbers for last year, 2020, we don't have them, but it's probably in the same level. Around more than 100,000 people who have been granted work permits in Turkey. So what are the different kinds of work permits in Turkey? Well, the first kind is the definite or temporary work permit. And we're going to explain it. The second type is the indefinite work permit. Doesn't have a limit. And then there's the independent work permit. And then there's the turquoise card. And finally, there is a work permit for those who are on a temporary residence permit, and we will explain it. So the definite work permit usually given for the first time for only a year, and most people apply for this definite work permit. After you finish the first year, you can apply for 2 years, given that the place where you're applying or working and the profession, the field which you will be working, is the same as the one you got your work permit. So I apply for a work permit, let's say as an engineer, and I get it for the first year. When I renew, if I'm working in the same company and I'm working in the same position as an engineer, I can apply, instead of 1 year, I can apply for 2 years and get my renewal for 2 years. After this finishes, it means that I've been working legally in the country for 3 years. First 1 year and then 2 years. At that time, I can apply for a renewal of 3 years once. And I don't need to be working in the same company or in the same profession. So the first time I apply for the definite, it has to be only for 1 year. And then I can apply, I can renew it. I can renew it for 2 years, and then I can renew it for 3 years, which makes it a total of 6 years. Now, the definite work permit, on the other hand, is for those who've been residing in the country or working legally for at least 8 years. If you've been, let's say, working for 8 years in Turkey, you can apply for a definite work permit. When you apply for the definite work permit, you will be granted to work indefinitely in Turkey, and you don't need to worry about renewing it every few years. The third type is the independent work permit, and it's given for certain professions with the need of the market. Like some professions, you don't need to. You might not work in a typical company, and let's say the market needs the foreigner to be working in this profession, so they can apply for an independent work permit. The cost is 10 times higher for this. The normal one, you would pay around 1,000 Turkish lira. For the independent, you would pay around 10,000 Turkish lira. Now, the fourth type is the turquoise card. The turquoise card is given for people who are seen as giving a tremendous value for Turkey's economy or advancing the technology here. Those people, it can be scientists, it can be people with exceptional abilities. The turquoise card gives you a lot of rights which are similar to the rights of the citizens of the country, except in some conditions, like you will not be allowed to elect or be elected, but you get a lot of other benefits, and you can work indefinitely with this card. And then the fifth type is for those who are under the temporary protection residency, for people who are like refugees. They're here in Turkey and they have an indefinite residency. They can apply for the work permit with their indefinite residency. So we talked about the different kinds. So what are the benefits? Why should I get a work permit? Well, first, if you're planning on working in Turkey, it's better if you do it legally, because if you work illegally in the country, there's huge fines you will be paying, and you will not be able to get a lot of things done because you're not registered as working in the country. For example, let's say you have a business and you're applying for a certain qualifications. This qualification will help you in your business or your work. The first thing they're going to ask you is a copy of your work permit, or the companies which you're working at. In order for them to take you legally, they need to apply for you a work permit. So apart from that, there are other benefits that uh, with the work permit, you also get a health insurance. And this health insurance is one of the best here in the country, that it covers a lot in the hospitals. The fees for this health insurance, something which is close to 1,000 lira per month, but it covers, like, sometimes it covers 80 or more percent in certain cases in admission to the hospital. These are generally the benefits of why you should have a work permit. Also, if you work continuously for 5-8 years in the country, you will be allowed to work indefinitely, or you can also apply for the Turkish citizenship, given that you're working for 5 continuous years. All right, so we talked about the work permit, the different kinds of work permits. Now we're going to talk about what are the conditions, or how can I apply for a work permit. So you can apply for a work permit if you're in Turkey or outside the country. If you're outside the country, then you take your papers, which is a passport copy, and the work contract with the company which you're planning to work in Turkey, and a letter of employment that they're inviting you to come and work in the country. And you take your papers and you apply at the Turkish consulate or embassy in your country, or the country which you're a permanent resident of. So you apply with the papers. If you're a partner in a company in Turkey and you're planning on getting a work permit, then you need a paper showing, proving that you are a partner in the company. The Articles of Association is a good example. So after I apply to the consulate, if I'm applying and there's a company which is inviting me to work in Turkey, then that company will apply to the Ministry of Labor in Turkey, Ministry of Family, Labor and Social Services. We'll call it Ministry of Labor in short. So they need to apply to the Ministry of Labor in a period of around 10 business days. After that, the embassy which received your application and the Ministry of Labor, they will evaluate your application, and based on that they will either accept to give you a work permit, or reject it if the conditions are not met. So after you've been granted a work permit, you are required to enter the country in a period of a maximum of 180 days. So you're in the country, you get your work permit. In 180 days, you should travel and enter Turkey. And when you enter, you need to register with the address registration system as soon as you enter the country, in a period of around 20 days. Now, if you get accepted or rejected, you will be notified by the consulate of Turkey in the country where you applied for. Now, this process is not too difficult. If you've been invited by a Turkish company, usually they help you with the process, and they will send you the required documents like the letter of invitation and the work contract, and etc. If you're in Turkey and you're planning to apply for a work permit, then first you need to get a residence permit. You cannot apply for a work permit without the residence permit. This is important. If you're currently in Turkey and you want to get a work permit, then first you need to get a residence permit. Any kind of residence permit is acceptable, except those who have a student residence permit. If you have a student residence permit, you cannot apply for this work permit. It's usually a different procedure for students who want to also work. But if you're planning to work full time, then you need to apply with a residence permit, like the touristic residence permit, or the investor or the real estate residence permit. So another condition is that this residence permit needs to be valid for at least an additional 6 months from the time where you're planning to apply. Now, you prepare the documents. You will need a copy of your residence permit. You will need a copy of your passport. You will need a copy of your diploma or your bachelor degree diploma, and you might need a tax number. Now, usually if you're planning to work at a company, the company makes the application online to the Ministry of Labor and then follows up with the documents. So they basically do the process for you. If you're an investor or you are your own boss, then you apply yourself, or you get an accountant, a certified public accountant to do the process for you. There are some conditions for you to do this. We're going to talk about the conditions. For you to get the answer, it's usually a maximum period of 30 days. So it's much faster than the residence permit in big cities in Turkey. For the residence permit, it might take you more than a month, up to 3 months, the whole process to get your card. For the work permit, it's a maximum of 30 days, given that all the documents are submitted. If you are required to submit additional documents, or if they found that there are missing documents and they ask you to submit them, you can submit them, and then the 30 days period will start counting again. Now, we talked about how you can apply from inside Turkey and outside Turkey, and we're gonna talk about how you can renew the work permit. The renewal process is not that difficult. You need basically the same documents and a copy or a photocopy of your work permit, and you apply for an extension, and there are some conditions for the extension. So if you applied for, usually people apply for the definite work permit, which is for 1 year. So let's say I applied for the 1 year, and then I need to renew. When should I renew? Until my work permit finishes, or before or after. So the period starts from 2 months before the expiry date on your work permit. So in 2 months, I can apply before my work permit finishes. I can apply for an extension, or in some cases you can apply after or in a period of 15 days from the expiry date of your work permit. If you apply after 15 days from the expiry date, then it will be evaluated as applying for the first time. It won't be renewal anymore. So if I'm applying for renewal, I need to get this right. The earlier, the better. And I need to fulfill some conditions or obligations, which we will discuss. Now, the first condition is that if I applied for the 1 year, and we said that if I applied as an engineer in a company for 1 year, and then the time came for me to renew, in order for me to renew it for 2 years, I have to be working in the same field as an engineer and in the same company. After I apply it, after I renew it, and I get 2 years, and the 2 years finish, it means that I have been working for 3 continuous years. At that time, I can apply for 3 years right away, and I won't be required to be working at the same company. Now, what happens? What happens if I get a work permit and I'm working at one company, and then I change my employer and I go to work at another company. Can I continue with my work permit? No. I need to apply again for a new work permit, and usually my previous employer will cancel my work permit because they're paying taxes and insurance on that work permit. Most likely they will not continue doing this when you leave the work. So okay, so we talked about the required documents. For some professions, you might need a specific certificate. For example, if you're going to be an engineer or an architect, then you need a special provisional certificate from the Chamber of Engineers and Architects here in Turkey. Usually your employer will get that for you or help you with the process. Okay, so what are the conditions for evaluating, or how is the whole process, how is it evaluated by the Ministry of Labor? What are the conditions to be met? Who should get accepted or rejected first time and renewal? So there are basically a couple of conditions which are written in the law for how foreigners can work legally in the country. The first and the most famous rule is that for each foreigner there needs to be 5 Turkish workers in the same company. So if a company wants to hire you as a foreigner, to get you a work permit, they need to have at least 5 other Turkish workers. If they want to get an additional foreigner, then they'll need 5 more for that additional foreigner, and so on and so on. So if they need to get 3 foreigners, they need at least 15 Turkish workers. This rule is very common in a lot of countries in order to protect the local workforce. There are some conditions or some exceptions to the rule. Let's say you're working in the entertainment sector or in technology sector, and you have some certain qualifications or certain skills that they cannot find easily someone with the same skill set in the local job market. So in that way they can apply for you and you will get it, of course proving that you have certain conditions or qualifications which are not available in the local market, and then the 5-to-1 rule is not taken into consideration. Another thing which is evaluated upon is how big or how much money the company is making. So the second condition is that the company which is planning on granting a foreigner a work permit should have at least 100,000 Turkish lira as capital of the company, or it should have 800,000 Turkish lira in gross sales, or it should have exported not less than 250,000 US dollars in the last or previous year. The first condition is the easiest one. You don't have to fulfill the 3 conditions for the company. The first condition is having 100,000 Turkish lira, which is around $15,000 as capital of the company. Another condition is that if you are a partner in a company or you own a company and you want to apply for a work permit for yourself, you need to at least have 20% share, ownership share in the company, and you should have at least what is equivalent to 40,000 Turkish lira in paid, like your share of the capital. There are some conditions for certain professions. I'm going to tell you a few examples of them. If the foreigner is required to work as a pilot or to work in senior management, then usually they're paid 6.5 times the minimum wage. So the minimum wage is around $400, multiply it by 6.5, and you get the wage which should be given for the pilots or senior managers. For those who are going to be engineers and architects and branch managers, it's recommended to be 4 times the minimum wage. For teachers and those in the education field with certain expertise, it should be 3 times the minimum wage. And those who work in tourism and the travel sector should be 2 times the minimum wage. So these are the recommendations which the Ministry of Labor takes into consideration when evaluating your application. We said that in some conditions the 5-to-1 condition is let go in case there's someone who is an expert and they can't find someone like them or with certain qualifications, let's say in language or in technology, and they need that person and they can't find someone with the exact qualifications as a local citizen, then the 5-to-1 is not used. So there's also another thing. If you have a Turkish father or a Turkish mother or Turkish children, then you don't need to apply for a work permit. Or if you've been married to a Turkish citizen for at least 3 years, then also you don't need to apply for a work permit. Another thing, for those who are under the temporary protection residency, they can get a work permit and they don't need to follow the 5-to-1, which is usually applied for Syrians in Turkey because they're in the temporary protection program. Then they can be treated as Turks in terms that you don't need 5 Turks for each worker. So basically, these are the main points of how you can apply for a work permit from Turkey or outside Turkey. There's also an important condition for foreign investors who are thinking about opening a company and they're thinking, I might not be able to have or to hire 5 Turkish workers in the first year. The government understands this, and you can apply and be granted a work permit in the first year, even if you don't have any Turkish workers, on the condition that on the second year, when you want to apply for renewal, you should have hired 5 Turkish workers in the last 6 months. So for each additional foreigner, then you would need 5 more Turkish workers. There's also a condition in some sectors, like I think travel companies, is that if the company exceeds 50 Turkish workers, then they don't need the 5-to-1 rule anymore. So let's say it can also be in the media. If you have more than 50, then it doesn't matter. You can have 50 Turkish workers and 100 foreign workers. So these are some exceptions to the rule. So if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. So basically, this is the episode for today. We talked about what are the benefits of the work permit, how you can apply from inside Turkey and outside. What are the conditions? How is it evaluated? And the reasons why you might be rejected for the work permit. The work permit replaces the residence permit. So if I'm in Turkey and I have a residence permit, and this is my legal document. I apply for a work permit. As soon as I get my work permit, it takes the place of my residence permit. I don't need my residence permit anymore. Yes, I can keep it, but I can do most of my bureaucratic procedures with my work permit. Also, the work permit has a certain number, and it has also your foreigner identification number, the TJ numera. All right. Another question you might be thinking about is, what if my work permit expires and I'm not working anymore? Do I need to leave the country, or can I change it back to a residence permit? Or let's say I applied for a work permit renewal and I got rejected, and now I don't even have my residence permit. What can I do? Well, in that case, you can apply for a normal residence permit, a touristic one or an investment one, depending on the reason of the purpose why you're staying in Turkey, and you have around 20 days in order to do this, so it's not a big deal. We talked about almost everything. We forgot to mention something which is kind of important. Can I, as a foreigner, apply for any profession here in Turkey, or there are some professions which are only available for local citizens? Yes, there are some professions which are only put aside for Turkish people. These include managers of private hospitals. You cannot apply to work in this field. Also, dentistry, nursing, pharmacy, law. As a lawyer, you can't work as a lawyer if you're a foreigner, or as a notary, or in the customs, or as a security officer in one of the security companies, or in travel guidance, as a travel guide. So, of course, there are, like, let's say you're a lawyer and you want to work in Turkey, you can consult generally, but you will not be allowed to work as a lawyer. So these are basically the conditions. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you're watching this later on after the live video, also you can leave your comments in our YouTube video or Facebook video, and we will get back to them and answer them. Also, if you have any questions, you can, or you need some consultation, you can contact us to the numbers in our website and social media pages, Eyeturk Real Estate Investment and Consulting. Thank you so much for watching the episode with us today. We will see you next week with another episode of Eyeturk Podcast. This is Maaz Belkheir, and I'm wishing you a great weekend.